Hey, I'm Shelly,
And I'm Angela,
and this is Real Talk Dating Exposed.
where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of dating in your 40s.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like us below.
And if you're listening to us on audio, please subscribe as well.
Now let's get into it.
Okay, so let's talk about red flags in relationships, things that we're on the lookout.
Yeah, I think we talked about red flags off of superficial first date.
Yep, that was literally someone walks in the door and you're like, oh, this is a no. So
Yeah,
that
so-
was more superficial physical attraction.
So now we're talking, we're getting in it with them, we're dating them.
Yep.
What are we seeing that would potentially make us like wave the red flag?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think number one and one of the most important ones for me is inconsistent communication. So I feel like if we're dating, I don't need you to be up my ass. I almost don't prefer that in any capacity, but to hear from you in whatever capacity that makes you consistent, I guess I need that from someone. And I don't know if that's clear, but like say you work all day and then you get off 5, 6, 7, you have your kids. Hey, hope you had a good day. I'm going to bed tonight. I hope you had we'll chat tomorrow. I think just having anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Or if they're super in my grill 24/7, which I feel like is a little love bomby, and then all of a sudden they fall off for 2 days.
Right.
Not that I love the love bomminess, but also I really love less you just falling off
Right.
and then not hearing from you at all.
Right.
So I just think consistency in whatever capacity that they show up is fine with me when you're first dating, because like we always say, you're just observing them.
Sure.
But the minute things get a little wonky, or if I'm feeling like, oh, that's not their typical behaviors, I automatically go to the worst.
Do you feel like you lean on the man to kind of set that expectation or the field of what the communication is going to look like? And then going back to like you're observing, you're just like, okay, show me who you are. Show me how you like to communicate.
I do think I put it on the man.
Yeah.
And I think this
Yeah.
goes back to kind of masculine, feminine. I don't want to be in my masculine. I don't want to be the one setting the tone. It does not mean I will not reach out when I feel like I want to reach out.
Sure.
Right. But I think I like the man to kind of take the lead in that sense, for me to
Set the tone.
observe
Yeah.
how their communication is going to be,
Yeah.
what that looks like. Are they asking me how my day was? Are they engaging, even if it's just one text a day? We don't need
No.
a lot.
No.
But consistency is probably huge.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's like you said, they kind of set the baseline for what it should look like. And then when there's any outside of the norm or they drop off, then you're just like, huh.
Interesting.
Okay, what's going on here? And I mean, we're two consistent humans just in life.
Agreed.
So we want someone who's going to be consistent and whatever that looks like.
So I think, and I think that turns into a big deal in my world. I don't know. Some people may just be like, oh, they got busy. It's not a big deal. Well, I think it takes 2 seconds to send a text.
Yeah, just send a text like, hey, just thinking of you, going to be busy today, blah, blah, blah. Hope you have a great day.
Agreed.
Done.
Or even if it's you're used to a nighttime and you don't get
Right.
that nighttime, and the next morning, like, hey, because I'm guilty of this, which is like family's in town, whatever, you get busy. The next morning, like, hey, so sorry, last night was crazy. Hope you had a good night. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, to me, it's simple to be
Yeah.
consistent in communication, but I find it's very difficult for a lot of men.
And just courteous, right?
Be courteous.
Yeah, be courteous.
Yes.
Okay, how do we feel about people who don't take responsibility for their actions or get defensive if we're like, hey, let's say there's some inconsistent communication and we bring it up to them, just like, hey, haven't really heard from you, and they get defensive or they're not able to apologize. Like, how do we?
Red flag. That's a really big red flag.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of my biggest red flags. I
Right.
think it goes into the like avoidant attachment style / narcissistic behavior, which is, and again, we're not we're not making this a blanket statement, right? But I think men that cannot say they're sorry, even if it's just for how they made you feel,
Right.
they don't have to understand it. They have to respect how you feel.
This is a big one because
And I feel like this may be our biggest.
I would agree with that. I think, and I think it's a challenging thing for men because men are problem solvers. They're fixers by nature. Most are, at least. And so when we come to them with something that we're feeling, they automatically go into like fix it mode
or defensive
or
mode.
defensive mode, which is a whole other thing.
But what if they're not willing to say, hey, Ange, I'm really sorry that I made you feel that way?
I mean, I've ended things based on that because that shows me just the lack of emotional availability, to be honest, is or not able to have compassion or hold space for someone. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to really even own it, but just as a human to have compassion for the person across the table that's like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to make you feel sad. I'm so sorry.
Now, if there's someone new that you're dating and you get the first interaction with that person that makes you realize that they didn't apologize, do you bring it to their attention before you just like say, this is a red flag, I'm out? Because I've watched these patterns before and I know where this is leading.
No, I think it's important to bring it to their attention. I mean, you and I have talked about this. We don't expect people to be human or perfect, right?
Yeah.
But it goes back to, okay, now here's my opportunity to have a conversation with them to see how they're going to react with me bringing it to their attention, you know? And can they learn from it? And vice versa, right? Like there's going to be things that I do or you do that upsets the other person. And I know for a fact we would have the space to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Totally.
You know?
Well, and I think how they handle you bringing it to their attention will show whether or not it's someone that we would want to continue dating.
Right.
Because a lot of men that cannot apologize or gaslight or make excuses, we know what, you know, those typical patterns do not change, regardless of if it's brought to their attention or not.
Right.
So, red flag.
100%.
Okay. What about emotional unavailability?
Can we talk about this? Like when we say, because we talk about, you and I talk about this a lot, right? Where it's, what does that even mean? How does this present itself in a relationship? What are some signs? Maybe there's people out there that are dating. They're like, I don't really know what the signs of someone who's not available emotionally. What do we have with that?
I think emotional unavailability shows up in when they're unable to handle even your emotions, but even just as simple as the inability to express themselves other than maybe just like anger or avoiding those tougher topics.
Yeah.
So if you get emotional about something, if you're like, hey, I really want to have this conversation with you, this made me feel some type of way, I want to chat through it. The minute that they feel the emotional dialogue bubbling up, that they run for the hills.
They typically shut down.
Yeah.
And it's not even, can they hold space for us? It's, can they even hold space for themselves?
Agree.
You know, can they, because obviously if they can't do it for themselves, they can't do it for us, but are they okay communicating how they're feeling? Or do they just internalizing it quiet and shut down, right? That's what we would call an avoidant.
But I think the inability to even talk about their emotions,
right,
which is a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not going to fare well long term when we require depth and we want that dynamic of safety and feeling safe with the person to share our emotions, because we don't want to hold it in, you know? And I feel like when you start dating an emotionally unavailable human, it forces you to change how you're showing up, because you feel not safe showing up with your truth. So then you end up not showing up at all with it. And then it's like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah. And I feel like most of the people that you and I have come across that have been recently divorced, it's the men saying, you know, I can look back on this and see how my wife didn't feel emotionally supported because I wasn't attentive to her. And it does create that. I mean, you and I have both been in these types of relationships where you learn to just stop sharing your feelings because it's no longer a safe space to do it, which is just going to create some resentment and have walls. And then you end up learning how to cope with things on your own, which of course creates distance, right?
And then it makes you start questioning, am I too much?
Yeah.
Is this, the minute you start questioning who you are as a woman or how you're showing up and thinking that it's wrong or not, you're not doing things the right way, like that is not okay.
That is not okay.
You know, so we need to pinpoint those things. I think you and I can spot emotional unavailability from like 5 miles away.
Yeah.
Or one conversation.
One conversation.
One conversation. Sure. All right. That leads to my next point of, which is interesting to find in our 40s, right? But I mean, this is twofold. So someone that's never been in a serious relationship in our 40s, Or on the flip side, someone who's only ever been in relationships. So we could start with the first one, but how do you feel about a man that has legitimately not ever been long-term in 40 years, never married, not even just married, just not a serious relationship?
I mean, I start asking questions, right? Of, is this person even capable? And I mean, gosh, there's so many. Do I want to even teach this person how to be in a relationship? Because let's be honest, I mean, you learn relationships through being in
one. Yeah.
And so I think for women like you and I who are very self-aware and sufficient alone, and that is something I want nothing to do with. It doesn't mean that there's not someone out there. Honestly, I feel like if you're in your 40s and you've never been in a long-term relationship, you should probably go date someone who's in their early 30s, because maybe they'd be a little bit more tolerant to it.
I mean, I kind of agree. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think it would definitely be difficult for where we're at. I can only speak on our behalf.
Sure.
And I love that I say our, but I know we're similar in this way. I think it would be hard to navigate that. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't be like willing, able, show up for you in the ways that you want to be shown up for. It's just, are they capable? There's just things that come along with relationships, right? That you don't understand until you're in them. So like, how do you know how you're going to navigate like the first fight or hard conflict or sharing or compromise? I mean, there's
or like
so
living
many
in their
things.
space.
And
I mean,
then-
there's just so many things, right? I just can't ever imagine a world where we're our age and never in a, like, what have you been doing with your entire life?
So what are the things that trigger you at first to think like, oh, they must be like, do you automatically go to like, oh, they must be emotionally unavailable?
100. I mean, that's
Or like,
automatically
oh, there
where my
must
brain
be,
goes.
it goes there first.
It goes there first.
And then also like maybe there's a fear, like a level of fear that they are harboring to like make them scared to be vulnerable.
Well, and if you think about it, I don't blame them. If you've gone 40 years on this planet or however long and never been in that space with someone, it's kind of like how we talk about how the longer you're alone, it's harder to let someone in your space. Well, this is the inverse of that, right?
Which
where
is,
it's
I've
like,
only ever been
it'd
alone.
be even more scary to let someone in and like get close to someone if I'm in my 40s and I've never done that before.
Yeah.
Where you and I could be like, yeah, we've done it. And it sucks when you have a relationship and you end it. There's a lot of pain and hurt there, a lot of lessons, a lot of love, but you know that eventually you'll get through on the other side.
Totally. And I think practice makes perfect. I mean, once you rip that first Band-Aid off, I could think of my first love in like high school.
Right.
I mean, we're going back.
Yeah.
So after that, you kind of realize like, okay, I'm still going to be open and I'm just going to learn through it. Like, at least I'm going to learn something about myself, about that other person.
Yes.
But I think the fear leaves you after a while, even if you get really hurt or we both go through divorce, it doesn't make you scared to love again.
No.
You know, but I could totally understand the idea of never having that and how scary that may be to who's the first one I'm going to open up to.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So yeah, I think that, well, we know that waves a flag for Angela.
Yeah. No, what about on the flip side? So someone who, let's say, has been married 20, 24 years and doesn't have the dating experience, but shows that they are capable of being in a long-term relationship.
I think it comes more down to, when did they get divorced? How long have they been single? And like, have they done anything in that time to like focus on themselves and show up for themselves before they want to show up for someone else?
Yeah.
And I'm not blanket stereotyping, but I feel like a lot of men that have been in long-term marriages and then get out, they just want another woman because that's what's comfortable for them.
Yes.
So they want to kind of jump into another relationship instead of being like, ooh, who am I by myself? Because it's scary to try to figure that out.
Yeah,
at our
if
age.
you've lived most of your life with someone else
In a relationship. So I don't love that for me. I think I want to know a man is like solid on his own for a while after, and I can't really give a time frame to it, but I mean, a decent while, maybe a year or at least 2 years that where you're like standing on your own feet without a woman in your life. You're not trying to bridge that gap with another woman.
Yes.
Just to make sure that they're capable of being alone.
Yeah.
Because I like my alone time and I'm going to want to be alone even when I'm in a relationship. And is someone going to be able to deal with that?
And one thing I find too is men who shouldn't say jump, but don't necessarily have the adequate space in between divorce and dating someone seriously, is they don't know how to do it. It's like, it's almost like they want to pick back up with the amount of communication and activities that they did with their wife.
And then you're like, hold on,
We're not there.
we're not there yet.
We are not there yet.
I agree.
So I feel like that gets a little tricky too. And I'm sure women are like this too. We're not just like pigeonholing the men. Obviously, it's just our perspective. But I think there are a lot of people out there that don't take the time to be like, okay, who am I? What did I learn?
What do I like?
What was my role in the divorce? Because it takes two. How do I learn from that?
And am I over that before I bring it? Because I feel like a lot of them bring
their problems
some shit into the next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For example, if they were cheated on, then they're showing up insecure and bringing that into our conversations or whatever it may be.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either, I mean, to me, I wouldn't say being in a long-term relationship is a super red flag. Like if you go from one to the other, but it would make me mindful. Yeah. I don't love it.
I mean, I would rather have someone who's shown that they are capable of being committed in a relationship versus not.
I agree.
But what is important is what have they done and what did they learn?
Agree.
Between divorce and okay, what about some other things? I mean, you and I are very self-aware, so we think it's really important, obviously, for that person to be aware. Hobbies, we want to know that they have their own life outside of us.
Totally. I think, again, I don't know if you start fully understanding someone in those ways until you're obviously dating them, which is what we're talking about. I'm trying to think if there's any hobby red flags that I'd be like, oh, that is a deal. I mean, we can get a little
video games.
I mean,
I feel like
is that for you?
Yeah,
but like a red so let's chat through this.
Yes,
you're dating a month and you find out that they're a gamer, and that's what they like to do with their free time. Like that's enough for you to walk away.
I mean, I guess I'd have more questions, but it would cause me to, that's interesting.
Why do you feel so strongly about
one
it?
of my so I've been married and divorced twice. One of my ex-husbands was a gamer, so I have experience with what that looks like, and it can be all-consuming.
Are you bringing that into your? Are you
probably? Yes.
Yeah, so are you bringing that into the next? So you're having preconceived notions of what it could look like. What if it's just like, oh, it's a Saturday and like I have time off, and so from 10 to 12, I like to. I mean, they're probably.
That wouldn't be terrible because then I'd be like, cool. Well, I'm gonna go cold plunge in sauna and go to the gym and do my own thing. I mean, I think it's important to have hobbies, and it could be literally anything, right? It's just there balance? Okay. Is there balance? I mean,
anyone out there that games, don't hit Angela. Yeah. I mean, again, I agree it's a balance. I don't know if there's anything off the mark. I mean, I could think of some wild, outlandish things that I'm not going to say on here, like that you find out hobbies like I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that would really make me run. I just think what is there? You? I mean, I'm thinking of not good things in my head. Same. Like, yeah, I think most importantly, have a hobby, have something that you like to do in your free time. I don't know if anything off the bat, like with gaming too, I'm not mad if you do that, but do you have something else besides that?
Yeah.
Do you have something else?
Yeah.
No social media. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I'm partial to this because I feel like if we didn't have businesses, I don't know that I'd be on social media, to be perfectly honest. And it could just be I'm tired of it, you know?
Oh, I know.
But I don't hate that.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. But I guess I would understand. I would want to understand why.
Yeah. I think I've met some guys like they were military or cops and like they just don't want to have it. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at it. I don't not love it. Kind of like I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
As long as it's not another reason why that we're not understanding, like because you're married or like you have a psycho ex and like you don't want people to know. I mean, not that I'm going there, but like you never know if it's genuinely just because they don't have an interest in having social.
Right. Yeah.
I still feel like it's a little bizarre though. I'm not going to lie, like on some capacity, because even like Facebook, like Facebook's old school. I love Facebook even more than like Insta sometimes, but my family's on there, right? So like all my family's on there.
Yeah.
And so like that's where I keep in touch with those people that I don't see that are back east. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's.
I think just understanding why is the bigger
takeaway.
Yeah.
Agree.
I feel like we could talk about relationship red flags, almost like we need a part 2.
We might need a part 2.
Part 2 on this, but this is just like the tip of the iceberg. some things that we would be like, huh, okay, yeah, this
I
isn't
agree.
going to work.
If you guys think of any other ones that you want to drop,
Yeah, send them our way.
send them our way.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.